West Ham again have said we can't buy anyone yet. We've got to sell before we can buy. We're skint. I'm just sick of hearing it. And I'll tell you why. Because I do believe if there was a genuine desire to buy players, we'd do so. If there was a genuine desire from the club to get some early transfer business done, or to buy that striker we think we really want, or that one player that Graham Potter really needs, we could do so. I think within the parameters and within the rules, we could buy some players. And I think we've got to the point now where maybe PSR is just being used as a shield to deflect from actually the intention or the desire to want to go and buy players. I'm not going to go into the details of PSR because it's convoluted, it's tenuous, and it's bloody boring. But it would be fair to say it's very, very complicated and hard to understand. For that exact reason, Gio did a video on PSR and explaining what's it all about, what's the difference between PSR and cash flow. Did a really great job with it, but it was so vast and it was so tenuous, he had to split it over multiple videos. It's up on our Patreon channel at the moment. We've got a 7-day free trial. By all means, use the link below, activate your 7-day free trial. Go and watch it. He'll explain it in great detail. But I think because it's so convoluted, you just switch off. And also, it's delivering bad news. No one wants to hear bad news, right? You don't want to hear why you can't buy that striker you really want. You want to hear that striker that you really want's about to sign. That's the news you want. But yet again, we hear that we're not signing anyone. Now, I'm not throwing a hissy fit about this because it's early in the window. Now, the transfer window is about to shut tomorrow, and then it'll reopen on the 16th. For, again, more boring reasons. But the transfer window, the summer window, is being split into two parts. I understand. I'm not going to throw a hissy fit. We haven't signed anyone yet. It's not really that bothers me. It's the fact that we don't look close to it, and I'm not entirely sure we are in any sort of position to sign anyone because we seem to have handcuffed ourselves in this. Very recently, there was an Athletic article, which I don't think was bang on the money, but it was close enough, which would have suggested, well, it suggested that we could spend 95 million without being in breach of PSR. Now, it actually transpires that it's probably closer to 85 million, but whatever. I don't get 90 million, 85 million, 95 million. I don't care. It does mean that we could spend money right now without going on the naughty step. Brilliant. But we don't have any money because we don't have any cash flow right at this moment. Okay. So what that means is we're allowed to spend money, but we don't have any. Right, okay. So I asked this question. I asked it yesterday. Could the owners put some money in if they wanted to? And the answer was yes. They could. But they're not going to, because I don't believe there's a genuine desire collectively from all the board members, and that's convoluted as well. The makeup of West Ham is a mess. We've got loads and loads of shareholders, loads of board members, but there is a facility whereby they could do a share issue. There's 2 or 3 things they could do. They could be a little bit creative. They could look for a loophole, and realistically, they could give the club the ability to spend that 90 million early in the window. There's a number of silly little things we could do, like sell the ladies' team back to ourselves, which is something, the women's team, which is something a number of clubs have done. Just give yourself a little bit of money. But to be able to do that, because it is a loophole, one of the billionaires that owns the club, or all the billionaires that own the club, have to say, OK, we're going to do this little trick and we're going to do this little loophole, but it will get us going in the transfer market. Now, don't get me wrong, I do think if West Ham were in a real mess in January, which we might be, and we were looking at, we were in the bottom 5, which, again, I think is the way things are going and the way we looked last season, I think that's a probability more than a possibility, let's put it that way. I think that we probably would do something. We'd find some money from somewhere. And I think that's the thing I want to say. Why don't we find some money from somewhere? The report today that we have a small amount of wages that we can spend, but we have to sell before we can bring anyone in. Brilliant, right? Well, not brilliant. I'm being sarcastic. Nobody apparently has made any offer for Edson Alvarez, who's reportedly up for leaving, or wants to leave, and we want him to go. Nobody's come in for James Ward-Prowse, who is not up for leaving, but we want him to go. And same for Guido Rodriguez, who we want to go, and he wants to go. You get the idea that there's no money coming in for any of these players. The big player that we're really looking to bring money in for is Mohamed Kudus. That's looking less and less likely. We wanted something of a bidding war. Kudus has said that he doesn't want to go to Saudi. He wants a Champions League club. OK, that really narrows it down. In terms of English teams that wanted Kudus, you were looking at Arsenal and you look at Chelsea. Chelsea had made an official, well, I say made an official, I don't know what constitutes an official bid, but Chelsea have made an offer to West Ham, and West Ham have confirmed that Chelsea have made an offer which involved players. We've discussed this already. I'm not going to go into that detail now. Arsenal have made an inquiry, and it is believed that the inquiry is about £50 million. That's far too low for West Ham. He's got an £85 million buyout clause. West Ham know we're not going to get the £85 million, but £50 million is too cheap for our liking. So what we were hoping for was a bit of a bidding war between Arsenal and Chelsea. Push it up, we'd probably accept £65 million. That's what I think could probably happen. Looks now that, I don't know, again, the trouble is with transfer window, you do a video and news gets old so quickly that things change just really quickly. Another club comes in, things change, right? But at the moment, Chelsea want Jamie Gittens, who's at Borussia Dortmund, English player, born in Reading, played 30-odd times for Dortmund last season. Looks like Chelsea might be looking, and I think they've bid £30 million for him. Dortmund want 50 million, 45, 50 million pound for him. Well, if Chelsea get him, they're not buying Kudus as well. And it looks like they are serious about getting him. That would mean, in turn, no bidding war. No bidding war with Arsenal. And then Arsenal very much say, well, we've got to take it or leave it thing there. Now, basically, I don't want to go into too much detail on there, but it stops us getting business done early. That's what it does. If it stops us doing the business early, then we are still waiting around for this money to come in before we can start buying. This is really, really bad, because it's one thing that we know, irrespective of whether you think Graham Potter was good, bad or indifferent last season, or whether you had high hopes for him in his coming season, most people were in agreement that he needed to get his own players in before we could see the best out of him. Now, you might think the best of Graham Potter's not particularly good. You might think the best of Graham Potter will get us up into the top four. It doesn't really matter. Most would concede, actually, with the players that he inherited, he wasn't very good. He needs new players to bring it to deploy his style of football, Potter ball, for want of a better phrase. This looks as far away from happening as it did last season. This thing that supposedly he needs, this key to unlock the ability of Graham Potter, is not there. I do wonder why he even accepted the job in the first place, because it's starting to look more and more like a poison chalice. And look, I've yet to see any evidence that Graham Potter is a brilliant coach. But what's happening, and what happened at the last season, I did think was his fault. I think, tactically wasn't particularly good. But the bit that's happening now is not Graham Potter's fault. That is the fault of the club. My point is, I just don't think the club are supporting him. I think they supported him in as much as they brought in Carl McCauley, as they paid £1 million compensation to Chelsea. But are they supporting him right now? It would appear not. Because I'm struggling to think that he signed on the dotted line. He possibly did. That he signed on the dotted line. You've got to remember, this was a man who apparently was quite fierce in negotiations. No way he was going to accept a 6-month deal. He was looking at it for the long term, and he was looking at long-term planning. So the least he would accept was a 2.5-year deal. If you believe that, well, you have to believe that, because that's what he got. And I'm sure you would believe that he was offered a 6-month deal. So if you believe that he negotiated hard for the length of his contract, why would he suddenly not negotiate hard for the money he was going to be able to spend? Why would you press in negotiations for your friend and your colleague and your right-hand man, Carl McCauley, to come in and run recruitment if you weren't going to stipulate how much money you wanted to revamp the squad? I just don't think that both two things can't be true. If you've got a characteristic and you've got a trait, you'll use it all the time. You're not going to be detailed in one facet of the negotiation and vague in the other part of the negotiation. Yet we still have it, West Ham Skint. We can't buy until we sell. I just don't believe that's true. I think we can. I just think just replace part of that, which is we have no desire to spend until we sell, because it would mean going towards around the shareholders and saying basically we've got to put a bit of money in, we've got to be a little bit creative. I just don't think there's any desire to do that. In many respects, the board is too convoluted. You've got a situation whereby none of the board members are interested in buying the gold shares. Those gold shares were offered to Kretinsky, to Trip Smith, to Sullivan. Does Terence Brown still own some shares? Even the minor shareholders, nobody wants them. Well, nobody at West Ham wants them. We're led to believe that there are some other people outside of the club who might want them, but they want all the shares. That would be a complete takeover. Forget about that for the moment. We seem so far away from that. The board is, in many respects, we are victims of the fact that the board is too convoluted. There are too many board members. It's too bloated. Too many shareholders, which makes it stifling. Whereas this whole thing that's going on, board out, get the board out. Have you seen how many there are? I don't know if West Ham is the most convoluted and complex board makeup or board structure that there is. I don't know. I couldn't tell you about any other board or any other club. I didn't know what the percentages of ownerships are. But it's not helpful. I don't think it's helpful in our attempts to sell the club. Certainly not helpful in terms of anyone pressing for anyone to relinquish their shares. They're just not going to do it. And I just don't think it's helpful to the club, and particularly Graham Potter, in terms of trying to do a summer rebuild. We are already completely handcuffed by the fact that we don't appear to be doing these loopholes that everybody else is. Everybody else seems to have grown accustomed to PSR, and they've got these loopholes. They're finding ways to spend money, being quite creative. We're not. You can actually see that in some of the players that we're chasing. We chased a guy, I think his name was Junior Krupi, in January. And actually, we were surprised we didn't get him. In the end, he transferred to Bournemouth, because actually the owners of Bournemouth, which is Bill Foley, I think his name is, Krupi was at one of Bournemouth's feeder clubs, basically. We've just done the same with it's either a Swiss or Belgian midfielder. It turns out it's at one of the clubs, which is a feeder club for Manchester City. We keep going for these players, and we don't know. We're bidding for players that are basically at other clubs' academy clubs. So I think we're constantly surprised by this. So hold on a second, how did that not happen? We don't even know it's going on. So how we can have some understanding of it and implement any of these loopholes ourselves, I don't know. We just, as I've said, I just feel like we're 20 years behind the times with a lot of this stuff. I'm just plucking that figure out the air, but we are behind the times. Where it doesn't. To be fair, football moves so fast. You can be 3 years behind the times, and that will do enough to scupper you. And as I've maintained for, I think, since halfway through Potter's time at West Ham, my concern was always this transfer window. And as I say, I'm not throwing a hissy fit because we haven't signed anyone yet. That's not it. It's the makeup and all the detail and all the nuance for all the reasons I've just said. It's a desire. I'm not seeing a desire to sign any players. I'm seeing at best, you stagnate, at best. But I think, that old adage, if you're not moving forwards, you're moving backwards. I would suggest that is what's going on at West Ham at the moment. As I've maintained, I will be happy to chill out once we sign some players. But all you're hearing from the club is we need to sell some players first. And we just look like we're a million miles away from doing that.